Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Quite possibly the toughest test yet in this series for our BRSCC Clapham North Winter eSports Series drivers. The first time since this series began back in 2022-23, we're at one of the tightest, toughest and most technical circuits that you will find in the UK. For the very first time since it was added to the service, we're at the mini Nürburgring of the North. Cadwell Park in Lincolnshire for rounds. Cadwell Park for rounds 10, 11 and 12 of the Clapham North BRSCC Winter eSports Series. And the slightly smaller field tonight, but it's not too much of a problem, I think, given the fact we are at quite a tight circuit. And this is one that has plenty of history in the UK, of course. Cadwell Park, a long-standing traditional circuit, practically untouched since it was first conceived. And this circuit really has been something that has become a hidden gem of UK motorsport and is genuinely seen as a roller coaster of a circuit. It's existed as far back, believe it or not, as 1938, and it's had minimal changes over the years considering to its current layout, which was formed back in 2006. It is tight, it's technical, it's twisty, it's very narrow as well, and even in real world when BRSCC heads here, the racing is typically close and tight, but overtaking spots are at an absolute premium. If you want to make a pass here, you've got to know that you're going to make the pass and commit to it as much as possible when it is an assertive pass for sure. And that's going to be the challenge for our 24 BMW M2 CSR race cars, filled with some of BRSCC's best and brightest from around the paddocks. Well, good evening once again. Scott Woodward here on commentary to guide you through all of the action. Joshua Wilkie on cameras producing the footage also too. And on board here with Thomas Merritt, Fiesta Junior driver, who is taking us on a brief onboard moment through the tight twists and turns of the Hall Bends. That's going to be quite a regular phrase I'm going to be using here, twists and turns tonight. The full circuit, 2.18 miles in length or 3.5 kilometres. It effectively is a bike circuit. If you come here for the British Superbike Championship, you will have a lot of people packed on that left-hand side on the bank. More than's currently in the sim, but even so, that bank is practically full to bursting with people. Going on an onboard lap here, you turn through the fast left-hander of Coppers before then you swing right towards Charlie's. One thing you'll notice here, the gradients and the cambers and the elevation changes is unlike anything ever before. I remember when this circuit came in, a lot of people hadn't heard of Cadwell Park, and they were remarking just how crazy and bonkers this circuit really was, when all of us Brits knew it as a bit of a hidden gem in motorsport anyway. You come up Park Straight, up to the top of the hill and into Park Corner, and you're at the highest point of the circuit here as you take the short shoot through this long multiple apex right-hander of Chris Curve. This then turns you into a very fast left right-hander as you plunge downhill called the Gooseneck. Then you charge all the way downwards towards Mansfield, right at the bottom of the hill. Very tight braking zone, particularly with the cave that's taking you downhill, and you've really got to stand on the anchors. Through a left-hander, at the short straight that takes you out of Mansfield and towards, again, a very infamous part of the circuit, which is the mountain. You swing into this first part in the left, very tight on the right-hander, and then if the car's light enough or quick enough, well, you would be going over the top and catching air. Not for Thomas Merritt, though. He loops it around on corner exit and very smartly gets out of the way if he can. That's Paul Dunningham going past and just about missing him. But had he continued the lap, we would have seen them hop over the mountain. It's not uncommon for light cars here, or lighter cars and more powerful cars, if you're going quick enough, to catch air over the mountain. We rejoin the onboard lap after that brief interruption. Now through the Hall Bends. Watching cars go through here on the first couple of laps is something really to behold. A couple of championships, when they're going through here single file, it is a magnificent sight and sound to see them snaking their way through off into the trees of the Hall Bends. You then go through the hairpin, through the short straight into Barn Corner and back onto the pit straight to complete 2.18 miles of Cadwell Park, the full circuit in play here this evening. Now, we mentioned there's a smaller field here tonight. That's actually not necessarily a bad thing, because we have had quite big grids, thankfully, of some 30-plus cars on the grid. Tonight, only 24. I say only, but I think given the tight and twisting nature and how narrow this circuit can be, that's not necessarily a bad thing. A smaller field means it's less incident-prone and less means the cars have a bit more room to kind of run with each other and less traffic on track as they're trying to find good laps. But you're currently seeing on screen here James Dennison, the points leader. He told us back at Brands Hatch he wasn't going to make Cadwell Park, and my previews actually had him as potentially not being here. So imagine my surprise when I look at the timing screen just before the broadcast and realise he is here with us tonight. So the championship leader looking to try and further extend his reach. The original plan was him, I think, as he told us back at the end of Brands Hatch, was that he wasn't able to make it, and he would indeed be in touch for Silverstone, which means that he would have had to use all three of the races here tonight as his drop score, and he would gain back his three worst results from the races run so far. This at least now means that he's in the hunt to extend his championship lead further, or his points lead further, in the Winter Esports Series, and he's going to try and increase that as much as he can, given that he comes into tonight's event with a 4-point advantage on drop scores over second place man Matt Kendall. Then it's a small tussle going on between Will Blackpool-Chambers, Jack Noller and Thomas Merritt for third, fourth and fifth. Just behind them, Isaac Doble in sixth. Then there's a bit of a four-way dance for seventh in points, and that's between Isaac Doble, Benji Douglas, Tom Griffiths, Tom Monhemius and Ari Barker. So that's the top 10 spread. They're separated by about 14 points or so. But Dennison, in fact, choosing to make an appearance tonight to continue his run of good form. Took 2 victories last time at Brands Hatch and missed out on the third, but he was deep in traffic in the top 10. Now, particularly in qualifying, this will probably be the most critical qualifying session of the season, given Cadwell Park's nature. As I mentioned earlier on in the opening part, Cadwell Park overtaking here is at a premium. It's not impossible, but it is at a premium very tough. James Dennison, even in qualifying, trying to deal with traffic in front of him as he makes his way down the pit straight. That won't be a quick lap. His fastest lap that currently puts him on pole position is a 1:29.684. That's the quickest drive times some of the drivers have been setting here. The top 4, in fact, actually covered by less than 3/10 of a second, all in the 1:29s, because Matt Kendall is on a 1:29.764, Blackpool-Chambers is on a 1:29.8, and Nathan Williams on a 1:29.9. You then look down to the drivers in the 1-minute 30s, and there are no less than about another 10 drivers in the 1-minute 30, so the actual time spread at the moment is only a fraction over 4 seconds. Looking at Nathan Williams here, who is currently sat in at 4th fastest at the moment, has got to find about half a tenth to get himself to the other side of the second row as he leaps over the mountain and makes the short shoot towards the Hall Bends. And in real life, the floppy markers will be going absolutely everywhere, because that's the kind of corners where you really have to take as much curb and as much inner line as possible without going too far and abusing track limits. Nonetheless, as Williams makes his way onto the short pit straight, A fun fact in real life in Cadwell Park, and I've been there several times with BRSCC, that pit lane is not big enough to hold all the teams and all the drivers, as you can see. So the actual paddock, the actual assembly area for the drivers, is up right at the top of the hill next to the short straight between the mountain and Hall Bends, and that's where they'll all be they would gather up in real life. In the sim, where they've got kind of these designated pit boxes here where you can simply just pit wherever you've got a space, and he'll be able to get any kind of service possible or a fast turn and get going. And hopefully we won't see too many drivers stuck in that sector, because we do know the nature of Cadwell Park, and I think we might get at least 1 or 2 drivers that will end up in trouble. Hopefully not too much, but we will see how that plays out. Look at Tom Monhemius here, who comes into the weekend, or into the event, currently sat in 9th in the point standings at the moment. His best result of the season so far actually came last time out at Brands Hatch. In the 3rd race he managed the 5th position, 92 points on the board for him, so a top 5 for Tom. Had a slightly quieter, more mixed start to the season in the first couple of events, but picked up some better fortune on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit as we hang out the side of the number 98 machine, sponsored by Coast FM. They were showing the support to him on social media earlier on today. Tom, you see the way the wheel working away as he turns left and then right through Hall Bends, through the hairpin, and then round through Park Blue Barn corner, and then shoots him back down the pit straight and to come across the line. In terms of his current position lap time wise, currently sat at the moment in 13th. Didn't really improve on his sectors there at this point, so we'll see if he can improve a little more as the session goes on. Tom turning his way out of Park Corner, out of Charlie's, and down the park straight towards Park Corner. And as I mentioned, this circuit more familiar with those who love bike racing, but cars do still relish this circuit pretty well. And even though none of the what you perceive to be the bigger championships come here, it certainly is a favourite at club level. The circuit that's nestled in Louth in Lincolnshire, and it is a circuit that it started out back in 1938 as the much shorter circuit, which only really went between a hairpin that just passed the pit straight, turning to the right, going up onto the short straight towards the Hall Bends and the hairpin. The bigger extended section that you see here didn't really come into play until 1961. That was then when we had that more familiar layout that you see here, the full Cadwell Park circuit layout. And then over the years, it really hasn't changed very much. If you look at the differences to the circuit, there really isn't anything that's been altered too much, apart from a little bit of the Hall Bends, and then there's an extra little chicane that you can use, which I think the bikes tend to use, or at least it's a full circuit, or the motorcycle full circuit, which is the short straight towards Mansfield and the mountain. The qualifying has now completed here for our first of 3 races coming up this evening, and on the front row of the grid, it's got a very familiar look about it, because there's 2 drivers in the mix who are at the top front of the field of the points table. James Dennison then starts on pole position for race number 1 here tonight at Cadwell Park. He is alongside Matt Kendall on the front row of the grid. Then it's Will Blackwood Chambers and Nathan J. Williams. So the top 3 in the points, top 3 on the grid for race 1. Next is Benji Douglas alongside Jack Noller, and they'll be on row 3. And Thomas Merritt back in 4th, and Joe Moss in 8th position. Then it's John Pethick and Tom Griffiths, who round out the top 5 ahead of Ben Williams and Chris Etheridge on the 6th row of the grid. Row 7 is where we find Tom Monhemius and Pete Smith in the second of the Bromley Racing cars. Ari Barker a bit further back in 15th position. He's alongside Mark Blunt on row 8. Then row 9 is Nick Ramsey-Goff and Daniel Crisp from Aaron Beattie and Joshua Jackson. And then towards the back, we've got Paul Dunningham, Carl Pilkinson, Jamie Peters-Ennis, and Dan Gamble. A slightly smaller field of 24 cars, but I think perfectly suited and perfectly sized for Cadwell Park here tonight. The last few cars just waiting to get onto the grid. Reminder of the format, 3 15-minute races. The grid for race 2 will be set by the results of race 1. The grid for race 3 will be the result of race 2 with the top 10 reverse. So if you can finish in 10th, you earn yourself a front row spot for race number 3 when it happens towards the end of the evening. So James Dennison then with a small advantage on drop scores of just 4 points ahead of Matt Kemp. The key battle at the front of the field. We have possibly a pit lane starter, but we'll get to that in a second. Look at the top of the screen. The 5 red lights will come on, and for the first time in BRSCC eSport history, we're going to be underway and racing at Cadwell Park. Puffs of smoke as the 24 rear-wheel drive BMW M2s get underway, and it's Dennison who immediately slots in front of Matt Kendall, but his teammate Will Blackwell Chambers looking for second. Number 2 Clapham North cars will go wheel to wheel through the left-hand coppice and into the double right of Charlie's. This is going to get very squeezy, very spicy indeed. But up the inside and staying in front is Matt Kendall. And that failed attempt to get through has allowed Nathan Williams to get a better exit from Charlie's. And then on the sprint now up towards Park Corner, it's going to be tough. It's a bit of touchy-feely there between Nick Ramsey-Goff and that was the Boston car of Dan Crisp. Flashed the headlights, I think an apology there. Either that or frustration, thinking, give me the room because I wanted to come past. Just behind the 2 Clapham North cars, you can see there's Jack Noller, who has gone into his position. In fact, Nathan Williams has passed Will Blackwell Chambers, so that's happened up at Park Corner or on the exit before they got to the gooseneck. As the field turns its way through, 1 car towards the back is Aaron Beattie in the orange machine. He's right at the back of the field in car 33. Then these wonderful camera shots as they come out of Mansfield and towards the mountain for the first time, as if any of them are going to be wiggling around, catching air as they do in real life. And over the top of the crest for the first time. And then through the Hall Bend, you can see them swinging through one after the other. The snake winds its way through Hall Bend, through the hairpin, and into Park Corner. There's a bit of a stack up here, as that was Pete Smith getting into the back of Chris Etheridge. But up to the end of lap number 1, and it is Dave Dennison, points leader. He has a gap now across the line of already 1.1, 1.2 seconds as they come onto lap number 2. Kendall in second place, Williams in third, Blackwell Chambers is fourth from Noller in fifth position. Then it's Merritt, Douglas, Moss, Pethick and Griffiths. That's the top 10 after the first lap of racing at Cadwell Park. Now, already the field starting to just settle down a tiny bit after that rather clean, tidy first lap. But I think in the driver's briefing beforehand, they would have had it stressed to them. This is a tight circuit. Overtaking opportunities are at a premium. You can't go 2 and 3 wide here very often. Don't try anything silly. Don't try anything funny. Just simply survive the first couple of laps, get yourself into a rhythm, and then you can start to go battling for positions. So the first couple of drivers that have started to be brave in making overtakes and making up places, probably knowing that they can have a better chance of defending their place than trying to attack the cars around them. And certainly James Dennison relishing in the fact that he has the lead from pole position. Looking at Thomas Merritt in P6. Had a really strong run last time at Brands Hatch. 2 second places, and one off the race, Benji Douglas in the Sim 1 Motorsport car. He's gone spinning off onto the infield grass. And the red number 70 is effectively having to watch everyone else tear their way past him. He rejoins in near last, 23rd position out of 24, just in front of Aaron Beattie. He winds his way back onto the circuit. We get a replay of what happened. This is back at the start of the race. This is Benji Douglas getting a little bit on the grass through the first part. He held on at a Joe Moss. I think this is further back towards the start. You can just see in the foreground Nathan Williams lining up Will Blackwell Chambers on the inside. And this is further around on that second lap. So this is him approaching Mansfield. He has John Pethick and Joe Moss around him. Joe Moss is behind him. And it's simply all by himself. He's got loose on the entry towards the first part of the mountain section, lost the rear end. That's the worst feeling in the world. When you've had a spin early in the race, you've got to sit there and watch everyone else pour past you. And unfortunately, he's having to claw his way back. He's just behind Dan Crisp, who I think has had something happen, because he's now dropped to 22nd and quite low down. So he's actually lost a few spots when he was originally. I think he was around about 17th, 18th place. He had that very early minor tap with Nick Ramsey-Goff at the start. Lap 3, still Dennis and Kendall. And let's see what happened to Dan Crisp. We've got the replay here. He's following Nick Ramsey-Goff through the Hall Bends. The Kraken sponsored car just behind the Driven Minds machine. This is in towards the hairpin. As a look on the inside line, just clip the curb. And then is he about to repeat what he did in qualifying by getting loose? He got a little bit loose, but nothing much that really affected him. It looks like he either had an overslow or possibly a slowdown of some kind. But either way, he has dropped back down the order. And the leaders are relatively still close together. The gap hasn't gone out much more than 1.1 seconds. But Dennis not being allowed to get away. And neither is John Pethick, as he's being hustled by Tom Griffiths in the number 60 TJ Motorsport car, black and yellow, chasing down blue with the offset white stripe. And just behind him is Ben Williams, who is a regular in the MG Metro Cup. There's Mark Blunt, who's in the number 15. Just hearing, there's been an incident in our A's between Mark Blunt and Jamie Peters-Ennis, so we're going to get a replay of that and see what happened. This is Paul Dunningham we're looking at here. Possibly a bit of an overslow, but this is Paul Dunningham still chasing down, I think, Carl Pilkington. And just in the background, that was Peter Zennis getting a little bit sideways on the exit you just saw there in the background. And that possibly caught out Mark Blunt as a result. There is Mark in 15th. He's chasing Harry Barker in the Team Northbrook racing car. Harry, the sole representative tonight for the Team Northbrook racing squad. No Richard Jett tonight, but still trying to uphold honours here in the top 15. Griffiths, meanwhile, just a tiny bit of air as he came across the crest of the mountain. I think in the background also Pete Smith got a little loose as he came over it to try to put the power down. He's chasing after Chris Etheridge for 11th place. Etheridge, another one who had a very strong and solid run at Brands Hatch last time, picked up his first podium. Hopeful for more around this time at Cadwell. And we've got a replay here of Benji Douglas getting past Dan Gamble. This is him coming back up through the order. This is the onboard view through the first part at the base of the hill. And Gamble got loose. Benji Douglas said thank you very much, and that's another place gain. He is now up back into 20th position. His next target will be Jamie Peters Ennis in 19th. And Daniel Crisp has got past Carl Pilkington as well, so Crisp is now back up into 22nd. Carl Pilkington 23rd. Our other resident photographer, and there is a replay there of Pilkington spinning on the exit of Mansfield. He's gone tumbling down the order and got some work to do back from second to last in the field. Our other resident BRSCC photographer, James Roberts, not here for this tonight. He has a very good excuse. He's off in Qatar for this weekend's season opener or coming up for the World Endurance Championship. This is up towards the front. We're seeing here Nathan Williams, who is still holding on to third place after Blackwell Chambers is keeping up the approach. Bit of a little wiggle there as he got some air across the top of the mountain and back through those hall bends. Got to be careful you don't cut the curb too much there, otherwise you will start to rack up penalty markers, and then eventually some kind of a penalty or a slowdown for cutting too much. This is the view from Will Blackwell Chambers, who I think has done just that. He's now had a slowdown, so he's now backed off and allowed Jack Noller through to take fourth. I think that's the perfect example, as I mentioned, of Blackwell Chambers cutting those corners a little too much and getting a slowdown for his troubles. Well, of course, third in the points. Only just a handful of points behind the battle in the top two. He was hoping to have a much better run, if possible. And back here with Blackwell Chambers keeping up the pursuit on his fellow Mazda driver, Jack Noller. Of course, Jack as well is the only representative of Lukey P's eSports team as well this tonight also. No Luke Pullen either. So we now ride on board with Tom Griffiths, former BMW Compact Cup racer turned MX5 Super Cup racer. Won his first race in the championship last year at Snetterton. Hasn't quite figured out what his 2025 racing plans are in real life, but he is keeping himself sharp at the wheel of a car bearing a badge he's very familiar with. In fact, he's even gone to his, I think it's a combination of his two liveries that he's had. He's had black with the white kind of detailing and accents and striping on the left hand side, but then in Super Cup what was I think a blue colour was now turned to yellow. He's kind of got a combination of the two. It's quite a striking looking machine. He chases after John Pethick, who he himself is also running a car that's reminiscent of his real life race car, Mazda MX5. As they just close up a little more through the hairpin. It's really tight, the tightest corner on the circuit. You have to hook the car around, which used to curve a little bit just to bounce your way through, and then out of the right hander of Barn, plunge down the hill, and then charge across the pit straight to complete another lap. So coming up towards 2/3 distance in the race. Got another replay here. This is another driver on the recovery. This is Dan Crisp passing Dan Gamble. This is up at the top of the hill at Park Corner and has the inside line. Eventually Dan kind of Crisp thought about committing to it, then decided he would. Gamble thankfully saw it coming, and despite retaliating on the exit through the first part of Crisp Corner, sits back, gives him the place, and through he goes. Through the exact same part of the course, we're watching our real-time action here as we head to 2/3 distance. Don Pethick still the small gap over Tom Griffiths. Ben Williams, who I mentioned, used to racing in Metro Cup, so he's much more used to front-wheel drive rather than rear-wheel drive. But again, keeping him nice and sharp in the off-season. And it's the purpose of this series, to keep people sharp. Someone's got to be really sharp here. It's Jack Noller, who's defending from Will Blackwell Chambers to reclaim that 4th place. I think he just about clouted the inside curve as he went through the second part of the chicane just before the mountain. Now Blackwell Chambers, lights ablaze, is trying to find a way through here. These two, of course, have never really raced each other on track in real life, but they have done, of course, in the sim. Blackwell Chambers in a Mark III MX-5 in the MX-5 Super Cup, compared to the Mark I of Jack Noller. Just in on my timing screen that Paul Dunningham has decided to eject himself from the race, so he's had troubles. The regular driver in Classic VW Cup, he looks like out of the race and back in the pits. So early end to his race 1 so far this evening. He'll be back out for race 2 certainly. Now looking at the onboard view, looking back now at Will Blackwell Chambers, who has the toe out of the right-hander at Charlie's. Now he goes to the outside here, up Park Straight towards Park Corner. Can he be lasted by late breakers, and is he brave enough to go round the outside and have the grip? Noller says no, holds the place, stays firmly on the racing line, and is forcing Blackwell Chambers to go a long way round here. And if they're not careful, these two keep on fighting each other, the easier it will be for Thomas Merritt, who's just lurking in the background, to make an attack back in 6th position. Just the white car there, the T12 eSports machine. And he took 2 second places last time at Brands Hatch. Just lurking, looming in the background, watching these two, especially on a tight circuit like this. It's a fascinating view you get here as they watch from the rear bumper of Jack Noller as they come over the mountain, past the Parc Ferme area, and through the Hall Bends again, when they go left and then right, then left again, hard on the brakes down the hill, tuck right through the hairpin. Little bump of the curb from Blackwell Chambers, but he's got the momentum here as he swings through Barn Corner. Little twitch of oversteer for the number 43 machine. He's got it under control. Speaking of under control, James Dennison has got this still under control. We can stay on this battle for 4th and 5th position, but just looking at the running order, James Dennison has a 2.1 second lead now over Kendall in 2nd place. Then Nathan Williams, who is less than a second behind in 3rd. I don't believe that Nathan Williams has had a podium all season yet. I think the best result that he's had, he is actually just outside the top 10. His best result so far, his best result was a 6th place last time out at Brands Hatch. So if he can stay here, Nathan Williams might well impress with his first podium of the season. Got the active position map on the right-hand side, so you can see who is where. Leaders going out through the gooseneck and down towards Mansfield. That very sharp downhill run towards the left-hander at the bottom of the hill. You've got to be careful when you brake here because all the momentum comes down the hill. This is a particularly hard corner that's taxing on brakes. And you just use all the curbs here as much as possible. You can't take too many liberties with the curbs, but you can use them quite substantially. It's one of the characteristics of this Cadwell Park circuit. One defining characteristic is just how narrow it really is. There's a reason why they say it's mainly a bike circuit. This is the driver POV view. This is exactly what the driver sees as he turns his way right, and then left again through Hall Bends. His eyes must be boring a hole in the back of those brake lights looking at Jack Noller's car as it swings its way through Barn Corner. And now they come onto the back of the pit straight here again to complete another lap. How many laps they've completed? This is now on to 9 laps completed onto lap 10. I think we're about on to the last lap of the race here because we've crossed the line with about a minute and a half to go, a minute 20. Could be seeing here the last lap of the race. And if Blackwell Chambers is going to get back through here, he's going to have to make an opportunity count. Meanwhile, Dennison still looking relatively comfortable out in front. There is Kendall in 2nd place. The top 2 in points, top 2 in the race. Nathan Williams has done his best to keep Kendall quite honest in 3rd place, but I have to say he'll be quite delighted with a first podium if he can hold there. This fight might go all the way to the flag though, because we've got Noller as Blackwell Chambers and Noller continue to fight, and Blackwell Chambers has a small look up the inside. He might think about it, diving up the inside for the first part of the gooseneck. Noller holds his line on the inside for the second part. Blackwell Chambers wide on the grass, and here comes Merritt in the background. Blackwell Chambers, I said he had to go for it on the last lap, and he's pushing as hard as he dares. He tried that move inside at Chris Corner and swarming all over the back of Noller as they're on the last lap towards the checkered flag. Noller on board, going defensive for Blackwell Chambers, looking for the undercut. He goes round the outside the mountain. Brilliant pass for Will Blackwell Chambers. Not only completely catches him off guard, but he's also allowed Thomas Merritt to get alongside. We'll come back to that in a second because out through in towards the pit straight for the final time. Another race win to extend his points lead further. James Dennison, a perfect lights to flag victory in race 1 of the evening in BRSCC Clapham North Winter eSports at Cadwell Park. It's second for Matt Kendall and a first podium for Nathan Williams in third. Blackwell Chambers fourth, and Merritt did steal a top 5 in the final few corners. Maybe we can get a replay on that potentially. 6th place for Jack Noller, 7th for Joe Moss. Then the rest of the top 10 reads Pethick, Griffiths and Williams in the top 10. And followed by Monhemius, Smith, Barker, Nick Ramsey-Goff finishing mid-pack in 14th. And Josh Jackson rounding out the top 15. But that was some gutsy stuff from Will Blackwell Chambers in particular to, first of all, try to get past at Chris Curve just before the gooseneck and then going around the outside. So the replay we've got here, this is what happened before. So this is Will Blackwell Chambers' view. Let's watch. So Noller went defensive on the inside line anyway. So Blackwell Chambers, well, he attacked on the first part, squeezed himself alongside, held his line for the second part, and thought, right, if you're going to stay there, I'm just driving around the outside of you. And the momentum from Tom Merritt saw him swing past. They went almost side by side into Hall Bends. Merritt just about got it anchored up on the apex, and through he went into our top 5 place. So Noller lost 2 spots in the space of 2 corners on the final lap. And I'm certain he'll want revenge for that in race number 2. He now knows not to do that again. He lost out on a top 5 finish, but still, kudos where credit's due. Will Blackwell Chambers, there's a reason why he's a 2-time Mark 1 MX5 champion and the 2020, gonna get it right now, 2022, I think if I'm right and correct in saying, Mazda MX5 Pro Class champion. 2022, yes, it was 22 because Aidan Hills was champion in 23 and 24. Anyway, I'm rambling. So the grid, of course, for race number 2 is the result of race 1, so we can do to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So Dennison, after his victory, takes pole again for race 2 with Matt Kendall alongside in second. Nathan Williams, third after his first podium, and Will Blackwell Chambers now on the second row after his gutsy last lap pass to get up into P4. Thomas Merritt starts on the third row alongside Jack Noller, then Joe Moss and John Pethick, followed by Tom Griffiths and Ben Williams in the top 10. Then Monhemius to Smith on row 6 from Barker and Ramsey Goff. It's Josh Jackson, Benji Douglas, Mark Blunt, Etheridge, Gamble, Pilkington, Crisp, Peters Ennis, Beattie and Dunningham rounding out the 24 field. I have to say, I think 24, as I mentioned earlier on, nice little number for Cadwell Park. It's not too much, but it's not too small. So, 12 rows of BMWs, all set to go once again. 5 red lights at the top of the screen. Is it going to be another lights to flag for Dennison? We will find out in 15 minutes' time as they get underway once more. And this time Kendall sweeps again across Nathan Williams, who gets a decent start. Tries to pull alongside towards the left-hander at Coppice, but he's now boxed in between the 2 Clapham North cars. He's got Kendall to his left in front, Blackwell Chambers to his rear behind him. As the field sweeps its way through, and not all of them got through unscathed. Pete Smith was the one that had the spin. I think also Chris Etheridge started from the pit lane. 1 car also on the grass as well in the background. That's Dan Gamble by the looks of it, so he's dropping down towards the tail of the field. The 24-strong field charged its way up Park Straight and towards Park Corner for the first time. We've got side-by-side action between Benji Douglas and Nick Ramsey-Goff, and that's Jack Noller who's gone around up at Park Corner, so whatever's happened to him, starting in 6th position. Noller then, his race has taken a very severe nosedive because the top 5 are all together, and there's a hole in the field, as the next car behind this group is 6th place Joe Moss for Flat Cap Motorsport. So down the hill towards Manfield, the second group of 6 cars together. One sort of bunching up into packs of 5 and 6 here already. That's Jack Noller who's got recovering Pete Smith, so not necessarily walking wounded, but they're one's on the recharge. And for whatever reason, Chris Etheridge, who's at the back of the field, started from the pit lane. Obviously a late one to get to the grid, but whatever happened to him, he's in the race. And the only car we have lost, sadly, on the opening lap was Dan Crisp for whatever reason, as Nathan Williams goes diving up the inside at the hairpin. That was a really gutsy move to get that done. He knew he had to get it done on the opening lap, but he's put Kendall offline. That now brings Blackwell Chambers and Thomas Merritt into play. So the man second in points started the race in second on the front row of the grid. Now he's down to third and potentially as low as 5th if he's not careful. Williams with a gutsy move up the inside at the hairpin, steals second place away. Now, can he do anything about the lead that Dennison already has, which is 1.2 seconds to the good at the end of lap number 1? Top 10 at the end of the first lap with Dennison leading. Williams up to second, Kendall third, then Blackwell Chambers, Merritt, Moss, Pethick, Griffiths, Williams and Monhemius. This is the replay here from Matt Kendall, his view, you can see here. So Williams thinks, right, there's the gap, up the inside. No second thought at all. Kendall gets a little loose. They rub panels on the approach towards Park Corner. That's just them trying to find racing room. And how close was Blackwell Chambers to passing his teammate? They were side by side for one moment off the corner, but we've seen the overtaking antics of Blackwell Chambers. He's not afraid to make a gutsy pass or two himself if he gets the job done and pulls himself on the racing line. That outside pass through the S-bend at the bottom of the mountain was quite simply majestic, and there's no other word for that. It's Nathan Williams. Matt Kendall giving that rear bumper plenty of attention as they come out of the mountain, past the assembly area on the driver's left, and through the hall bends. And all this kind of battling here has already given another 0.6 of a second to James Dennison out in front. The Bromley Racing with Alba Studios BMW number 14 has the advantage. Didn't see much of him in race 1, apart from at the end, but that's the curse of being the fastest man in the field. You sort of run away with the lead and everyone else gets the coverage behind because they're battling amongst each other. Across the line went the leaders, 1.8 seconds is the gap from first to second. And the possibility that Kendall could get back past Williams and start to try and close in, it's a loose one, but at the same time, if he does get past, he's going to have to try and he needs to determine that he has the pace to go and chase after Dennison, because he knows he's dropping points to James the more laps he spends in anything other than first place. On board with Kendall, this multi-apex right-hander at Chris Curve just leads them back around to this awesome part of the section, the gooseneck corner. You flick left and then right, and the road just falls away from you on the corner exit, then down the hill, just showing the nose in the middle of the road. Either that was him just trying to put the pressure on Williams to distract him, or that was more of a defensive move to fend off his teammate, because his teammate's only 0.2 of a second back in 4th position. But I'm certain these two, given that they are teammates, don't want to do anything silly, particularly when Will, I'm sure, knows that Matt Kendall is still in contention for the eSports Series title. Through hall bends, licking over the curves one after the other, through that very tight hairpin. Just applying the power a little bit more as they come onto the pit straight now. That's 2 laps in the books. Across the stripe, begin lap number 3. And Kendall does have a couple of race wins to his name so far this season, but has racked up a lot of second places. He had a very shaky meeting at Brands Hatch. He did pick up some solid results, and he did pick up still a couple of podiums, but he had an incident in race 3 that dumped him down the order and saw him eventually finish in 9th place, scoring 84 points. They're trying to have a little bit of damage limitation here where he can. And Williams pressuring John Pethick for 7th place as they approach Park Corner. They're also joined by Tom Griffiths, who I think is sporting a little bit of damage on the front of that number 16 machine. Number 60 machine, I should say. Looks like he's had a bit of a set to with the rear end of somebody's car. But continuing on in good shape. Just behind them you've got Tom Wanhemius and Harry Barker, and Griffiths not helping his cause by running wide on the exit of Gooseneck. That's now putting him under threat from Wanhemius. Back with our group battling for second behind leader, and Nathan Williams. It would be rude of me to say that he's the cork in the bottle, because he's got good pace. He's not letting Dennison get away too far, but you can just sense that the 3 cars behind are quite eager to try and get him out of the way and see if they can get off in a race of their own. The time that's left to try and chase after Dennison. Dennison might well have to make hay while the sun shines, because of course if he does win race number 2, there's still 9 minutes to go in this race. He has to start from 10th, of course, in race number 3. And that means that he'll have a really hard time picking his way through on a circuit where overtaking opportunities are very few and far between. Dennison will have to make the most of this lead that he has. Out to 2.2 seconds, and just extending by about a couple of tenths each lap. So, as I mentioned, Williams is not totally off the pace of Dennison, just that James has enough momentum to carry on pushing. Outside the top 3, Blackwell Chambers still 4th, Tom Merritt still 5th just behind him. As you see this fantastic aerial shot here of the cars as they make their way out to the top of the circuit. Dennison making his way down the hill towards Mansfield. And then the battles for 2nd down to 5th have kind of paired off at the moment. Williams versus Kendall, Blackwell Chambers versus Merritt. Then the next few cars, which is Joe Moss in a bit of no man's land right now, sitting in 6th position. There he is in the foreground in grey and blue. And this next group of cars, headed by John Pethick, we also have in there Ben Williams, Tom Griffiths, and Tom Wanhemius, and Harry Barker. So pretty much everyone in the top 10 plus Barker and 11 all together. And good to see these BMW M2s are handling this Cadwell Park circuit pretty well. I think their extra weight has certainly mean they can keep quite stable compared to the more lightweight Mazda MX-5s when they might have well been hopping around all over the place. Whereas at least with the BMWs, they're a little more sturdy and very capable race cars. And still, in the weeks and months since this car has been released, so many people still raving about how good the BMW is. The fact it's also a free car as part of the iRacing service when you first get started, it means it is the perfect entry-level saloon for anyone getting involved. Kendall is looking rather impatient here. He's just closing up on the rear of Nathan Williams. Third in race 1. If he can go one better, usually the only way is up. If he's got third in race 1, second in race 2, I've seen this story before. Usually it goes on to take victory. However, if he does stay where he is, like Dennison switching P1 to P10 for race 3, he'll have to revert to P9. Kendall again just showed his nose on the exit inside. That might have just distracted Williams a little bit. That's exactly what he wanted. Now he tries to pull another gear on the inside line, puts 2 wheels on the grass. He's not giving up too easy. They make contact and off goes Williams. The 2 cars came together. Williams exits stage left. Oh dear. And that's the worst thing that Kendall could have wanted, contact. Now, of course, we'll wait for the stewards to decide exactly who was at fault, if anyone, if just the 2 cars came together. The thing I will say, Kendall did have 2 wheels on the grass. He was that keen to try and get past. So you can see here, this is a lap ago by the look of it. This is Williams still with Kendall right behind him. It's that move further around on the lap that we'll see Kendall going through. But Williams then, with his opportunity to get another podium, has sadly gone by the wayside. The only saving grace he might get is that he has rejoined back in 7th. So if he does finish where he is, he'll be finishing in 4th ahead. This is what happened. So Williams then tries to come across and hold the place. Kendall puts his foot in, keeps his foot in. I'm glad I'm not a steward, because I'm not going to call that one. The pictures speak for itself. But Williams is the one that came off worse than that. He has retained 7th, which means if he does stay where he is, he will start ahead of Kendall anyway. That would be 4th place on the grid compared to a 9th place for Kendall. And all of that has actually allowed Dennison to double his lead. It's now 4.3 seconds out in front. So the coming together between Kendall and Williams has only allowed the points and race leader to further get away out in front. Looking here at a replay, this is from Nathan Williams' perspective. So Williams tried as much as he could to defend. He made the point, you're not coming through. Kendall again kept his foot in. It almost looks like the 2 cars simply come together as a result of that, trying to go for one piece of road. But again, not being a steward, I'm not getting involved in that conversation. We'll let the stewards decide if there was anyone at fault in that, and move on to more pressing matters, which is the current race at hand. Griffiths then 9th place. TJ Motorsport with Tom Bonhemis behind him. This second group of cars from 5th downwards has been in a line astern for pretty much the entire race so far. All really budging. Very evenly matched group of cars here. Joe Moss has pulled a small gap. He's got 1.2 seconds over John Pethick, and then the next 6 cars battling over the bottom places in the second half of the top 10 are looking pretty stable. There is Joe. Fans of Need for Speed will certainly recognise that livery. It's one of the kind of stock, kind of base liveries that you can use, that drivers can use if they don't have one of their own. So Joe has quite rightly gone for probably one of the most iconic BMW liveries out there. That's not even a race car livery. It's on a race car, but it's not used for race car purposes, I can tell you that. So Joe Moss in the Flat Cut Motorsport team. Joe, of course, one of the young chargers in the City Car Cup Championship. More used to front-wheel drive rather than rear-wheel drive. Now, someone else is used to front-wheel drive, or 2 drivers used to front-wheel drive, are Nick Ramsey-Goff and Mark Blunt. And this is Mark Blunt trying to either hold or defend the place from Nick Ramsey-Goff. He's trying to take 13th, 14th from Nick. And just sweeps across and takes the line. The Driven Minds BMW gets very loose on the exit and somehow defends from Blunt momentarily, and then just Mark Blunt goes sweeping around the outside and has the place anyway. So small mistake there from Nick. He'll be frustrated by that, but still, he's in the top 15, and that's just a good solid effort from Nick, who's been getting steadily quicker and quicker in the Driven Minds car. Jim mentioned briefly, there is the Driven Minds Willpower 6 Hour coming up, which is a 6-hour race that's supporting the Driven Minds organisation. This is Nick's POV, just of saving that slide. So there's Mark Blunt on the outside. Nick goes a little deeper into the corner to defend the place and to park. Runs out wide to defend the place again, and then just as he turned in through Chris Curve, as he carried just a little too much speed, the rear end broke away. and then just tried to do the best he could. The cars kept on wiggling, couldn't get traction, and Mark Blunt was an easy move past to get up into 14th place. Nick will try and chase after Mark as best he can, but he's got some dirt or grip to refine on those tyres before you can get back to Mark. And Mark actually doing quite alright for someone who is, as I mentioned, a regular in a front-wheel drive car in the Fiesta ST150 Challenge. I scored on the podium a few times in that championship. Get to score a win. That's a long time coming, I think, with Mark. It's only a question of when rather than if he takes a race victory in ST150s. But keeping himself sharp, Cadwell Park is a circuit where the ST150s have gone to quite recently, quite regularly in the past. I wonder if they'll do so again this year. Now, back to our trio that's scrapping over the podium places. Still Matt Kendall in second place, being chased down by Merritt and Blackwell Chambers, both of them putting all four wheels into the air over the mountain. That's how hard they're pushing. Now, remember, Merritt stole a position on the last lap from Jack Noller, as did also Blackwell Chambers, right here at this part of the circuit, or around this part of the mountain, on the last lap of the race. And now going on to, I think what looks like the final lap now is going to be David Dennison, because his last lap was a 1:30.070. So white flag is in the air. One more time around Cadwell Park for the second race of the evening for the Clapham North BRSCC Winter eSports Series, the Mini Nürburgring of the North. And David Dennison has absolutely clicked with this BMW M2 CS Racing ever since at the start of the season. He was getting quicker and quicker in the Mazda towards the end of season 2 last year. But now the switch to the rear-wheel drive BMW Saloon, a little heavier, a little more sturdy. It really seems to suit James's driving style and his experience on these UK circuits. Fantastic onboard shots as we look from the right and then the left-hand side as we hang out the side of the number 14 Bromley Racing with Alba Studios BMW through Mansfield to the bridge, and now through the left-right S's before right at the base of the mountain before they pop over the top, over the crest. And yeah, tiny twitch. They don't always get air there. It takes a very fast car, a very lightweight car to do so. And then you clip the apexes of the hall bends one after the other, under brakes, and then we tuck all the way right through the hairpin in second gear, up through barn corner for the last time. As the Joshua likes to say, the first time was nice, so nice he had to do it twice, because it is James Dennison taking victory once again, another one to add to his tally in the 2025 BRSCC Winter eSports Series in this season. Victory by 6 seconds in the end from Matt Kendall, so he does hold off a second despite the incidents from before. Now, what's happened here? Because there's been a massive skirmish on the final lap, because Joe Moss has come through in third place. That's going to need a replay in the 5 minutes that we've got in the warm-up if possible, because Joe Moss has come through in third. Something's happened here on the last lap. Now, John Pethick, I see in the background there, was facing sideways. It's in front. There's a huge puff of smoke in front. This is Ben Williams we're looking at here. Now, I think the obvious conclusion is that Merritt and Blackwell Chambers have come together. Williams tried to muscle his way past Merritt, but then found the grass. There was a sprint to a line, and through all of it, Joe Moss came through in P3. This is what happened between Merritt and Blackwell Chambers. He tried his last lap move again on the inside. They touched. Blackwell Chambers, ever the gentleman, waited for Tom Merritt to get going again. Merritt reversed out of the way. Thanks, Tom. Carried on. This now, of course, allowed Joe Moss to come through, take 2 free passes, and up onto the podium he went. And Williams looking back at him here. They arrive on the scene. There's smoke in front of the 2 cars have come together. Merritt rejoins in front of a bemused Williams. Blackwell Chambers also tried to recover. Very close between Merritt and Williams through the last corner on the sprint to the line. But through it all, Joe Moss, who was literally in a race of his own pretty much and not really challenged by anyone, picks up a free top 3. So that will be one of his best. That will be his best result of the season, which is by far something he will be delighted at. But of course, remember, race number 3 sees the top 10 reversed. Same finishing results, again, take from the finishing results of race 2, but whoever finished 10th now will start in first, and likewise James Dennison now has to start back on row 5 on a circuit where, you don't need me to tell you, it is not easy to pass here. Some will try, some make it happen, others not so much, but even so, passing here is very much at a premium. And this little 5-minute warm-up session is just on for the drivers to have a tiny bit of a cool down, whilst also getting themselves used to the cadence of how race 3 is going to go. As we enjoy some of the wonderful views of virtual Cadwell Park, just a reminder that the real-world BRSCC season gets underway in just under a month's time at Silverstone on the GP circuit. It's part of the reason why the final round of the 2025 BRSCC Clapham North Winter eSports Series takes place on the Silverstone GP circuit, because it's a perfect little warm-up for the same race meeting that's going to take place in just under 2 weeks' time on that venue. So plenty of action in store there. If you want to find out all the plans for BRSCC, all the events, all the championships and series that are taking place so far in 2025, you can head to the website, brscc.co.uk, head to the Formula section, head to the race calendar section. You can learn about everything that's running with us in 2025. And of course, if you want to follow the BRSCC on socials, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, be sure to hit subscribe. There will be live stream coverage throughout the season. Plans for that are going to be revealed, I'm sure, in due course over the next few weeks. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, also on LinkedIn as well. We post quite regularly there too. So plenty of social media platforms to follow the club and everything that it does. So race number 3 coming up shortly. This little brief warm-up session. Give the drivers a little bit of a cool down after 2 rather energetic races. Not as frantic and questionable driving standards as we may have seen in years gone by, but on a circuit that's quite windy and twisty. And having mentioned the fact that we have a smaller field than we normally do, but that's not such a bad thing, I think, particularly on a circuit like this with Cadwell. It means there's more room for the drivers, they can race a bit more, they're not confined in, it's not too complicated. And because of that, the field that we have here tonight, I think, works quite well with the numbers that we do have. Fingers crossed that we do get a good entry. We've got quite a nice... we practically filled the registration thing with 41 drivers registered for the season. We've had the vast majority of them out in the last 2 meetings, but if we can get just about everyone out again for the final round at Silverstone, that will be a perfect sign-off to what's been, I think, so far, by, you have to agree, the most successful Winter eSports Series race to date. And I have to say a big thank you, of course, to Clapham North and the main man behind it, George Grant, and every one of his team for supporting the eSports Series, and of course to our friends at Apex Racing for being our broadcast partners too on top of that, and of course for iRacing for providing the platform for racing here, of course, as well. All of them have been invaluable in ensuring another successful series. And you have to agree with Cadwell Park, this is one of the newer circuits that iRacing have brought to the service, that it is a beautiful one indeed. They have really done a fantastic job laser scanning this circuit to absolutely finite detail. And it genuinely, particularly with the lighting and the improvements they're always making to the graphics engine, the lighting and the weather conditions, particularly also the Tempest weather system on top of that as well, which gives you the temperature, of course the weather conditions, likelihood of rain, clouds and everything else on top. It is quite magnificent. You can see here that the actual setting that we have, it's in-game, it's about roughly 2:45 in the afternoon. Very light wind, very light, no chance of rain at all for this race, thankfully. I have heard of a whisper on the grapevine that apparently there might well be some rain coming up at the last race at Silverstone, but we don't know if that's confirmed just yet. It's more of a random round robin that we get for rain than the 2 races that we do have. And just even that site there, having stood there in real life before, with how good the graphical fidelity is now of iRacing, even today with how long old it is, some of these views here are incredibly relatable, and the fact they've got it so accurate and so spot on is incredibly impressive. You can even see all the rubber pickup that's on the outside of the circuit where the tyres have been sort of spitting off little chunks and little pieces of rubber as they come through. So great work by everyone involved at iRacing to continue to evolve the platform. Looking at Carl Pilkington here in the number 22 machine. He's one of just a couple of cars out on track. Benji Douglas also on the track, as well as M. Williams, Chris Etheridge and Harry Barker. So they're just making the most of this extra little bit of track time to improve their kind of baseline understanding of the circuit. Orm is just a few seconds away from finishing, and we'll see the grid with the top 10 reversed, all set and lined up and ready to go for race number 3. So James Dennison, 2 victories in a row for him tonight, 2 more to add to his tally for the 2025 series. Now the big test, can he go from 10th to the front, or at least onto the podium, on a circuit as narrow and as winding as this? Well, with the top 10 reversed, it puts Benji Douglas on to pole position in the BRD Motorsport car, sponsored by Sim1. In fact, there's a bit of a shuffle around again, because now it's Harry Barker, in fact. So the initial shuffle round put them into one place. Now they're into the right order. So it's Harry Barker and Tom Wanhemius who will line up for race 3 tonight on this partially reversed top 10 grid. Tom Griffiths and Ben Williams then come next on the second row of the grid. Thomas Merritt starts in 5th, ahead of Nathan Williams alongside him in 6th. And he's ahead still of Will Blackwell Chambers in 7th, Joe Moss in 8th. And then the 2 drivers that have been in the top 2 on the grid and in the races for the first 2 races tonight, Matt Kendall and James Dennison, round out the top 10. Benji Douglas and John Pethick then come next on the 6th row. John Pethick dropping to 12th in the end after he had a late incident on the final couple of laps. 13th for Jack Noller. He recovered well after his first lap spin. And then he starts alongside Nick Ramsey-Goff, and it's Mark Blunt and Chris Etheridge, Pete Smith and Josh Jackson, Aaron Beattie and Carl Pilkington, Jeremy Peters Ennis and Dan Gamble, and Paul Dunningham and Daniel Crisp. 24 drivers for another 15 minutes to round off the evening. One car a little too keen there, as the 5 red lights go on and off again. It might have been Thomas Merritt that jumped the start briefly, but we'll see if he gets a jump start penalty as they charge towards Coppice for the first time, and Barker has the advantage. And already, even though it was a slightly possible jump start for Merritt, you can see Nathan Williams trying to pull himself up the order. The 24-strong field pours its way through Coppice and Charlie's sweeping its way through. Out the park straight for the first time, and everyone, fingers crossed, has got through safely the first few corners. Yes, he says rather tentatively. They've all got through safely, so that's a great sight to see. One of the classic Cadwell Park shots at the end of the straight towards Park Corner. So Harry Barker then for Team Northbrook Racing, holding the lead from pole position. Tom Wanhemius up there in 2nd place. Griffiths is 3rd. Nathan Williams is up into 4th, so he's ahead of everyone else that he was battling for position in race number 2 over the podium places. Dennison, he's got... that was Dennison who is in 10th place and under pressure from John Pethick. We had a sneaky little look down the outside into Mansfield. But the points leader and double race winner not keen to let that pass go too soon. Into the mountain section for the first time. Leaping over the hill. Back through the Hall Bends once again. That's a great shot if you watch it in real life. Watching the cars go away from you as they head through the Hall Bends. Fascinating sight. Barker, very hard right through the hairpin, and that's Nathan Williams, who I think he's up to 4th positions. We've made up a place on Ben Williams. So Ben there was just trying to hold the place, and Thomas Merritt, in fact, does come into the pit lane. So that was a jump start for him. He will serve that and goes to the back of the field. End of lap number 1, Barker leads, Wanhemius 2nd, Griffiths 3rd, Nathan Williams 4th, Ben Williams is 5th, Will Blackwell Chambers fastest of the front runners, in inverted commas, and Joe Moss in 7th, Matt Kendall 8th, James Dennison 9th, and John Pethick in the top 10. And a mistake there from Harry Barker gives an easy free pass to Wanhemius and also possibly to Griffiths on the approach towards Park Corner. And that is Griffiths going round the outside and denying Barker the lead, so it lasted all but a lap and a bit before a mistake on the exit of Charlie's gave both Wanhemius and Griffiths the lead. Here's the replay of what happened. I must have been looking at my timing screen. He ran wide over the curb, then put 2 wheels onto the grass, lost momentum, through goes Wanhemius, and Griffiths saw the block that Barker tried to throw, so he dummied him down to the outside, outpaced him on the run towards Park Corner, beat him under brakes, and that's him up into 2nd position. So, new race leader, Tom Wanhemius, and I don't think he's been here before. Wanhemius for the first time in BRSCC eSports history in the lead. Harry Barker, meanwhile, behind him, might well be about to lose another place because Nathan Williams was trying to repeat his trick from a lap ago. Well, here he comes up the inside and he touches, around goes Barker, gets sideways and he gets dumped out of 3rd position. I'm sure the Stills has something to say about that. And just like before with Benji Douglas, Harry Barker has to sit and wait for the entire field pour its way past him. Oh, and that's Jack Noller in the barriers as well. So that was on the exit of the hairpin. Now, that was a separate incident, but I didn't see, we saw the aftermath of his car in the barrier with no front bumper. Now I wonder, because Pete Smith has no front bumper either, so I don't want to put 2 and 2 together immediately. Those two might have come together, and he's scrapping away with both Chris Etheridge and Nick Ramsey-Goff. Both take to the grass on the exit of Coppice. That's interesting. There's been a little bit of a skirmish going on between cars in and around the top 10. We might get a replay of that shortly, if possible. We're going to get it now. So, this is what happened here. This is Noller. So, this is Noller chasing Benji Douglas. Douglas gets loose over the first part. Let's see what happens here. So, the contact happens in front. Everyone stacks up. Noller gets going. Oh, he lost it by himself. So, in the answer to the question, did he jump or was he pushed? He did it all by himself. I think he hooked the curb a little too much on the inside through the hairpin whilst he was chasing the car in front. Lost the back end of where it went. This is a bit further. This is Joe Moss we're looking at here through the S-bends. We might get a view here as to what happens as they come into this complex. So the incident happens in front. Puff of smoke. Wide goes Barker. And the rest of the field got through pretty much trouble-free. And something must have happened on the exit for Joe Moss to lose his bumper as well. This is Harry Barker's view here. Look, so you can see going through the Hall bends, he has got Williams attacking through the corners here. He did this a lap ago and successfully managed it. Not quite so much this time. And out goes Barker. Exit stage right. Has to wait for the entire field to pour past as Jack Noller had his own incident moments later. Out in front, a little bit of a change. Joe Moss has dropped back to 7th, 8th place. So Joe Moss was up there, but now he's slipped up a couple of places. Tom Monhemius now has a 2.4 second lead over Will Blackwell Chambers in 2nd place. Ben Williams is now 3rd, and Matt Kendall, crucially, 1.2 seconds now ahead of James Dennison as they hold 4th and 5th. Looking at Dennison here, who's got Benji Douglas behind him for company. John Pethick in 7th place, Joe Moss in 8th, Pete Smith in 9th without a front bumper. And 10th is now Chris Etheridge, and Joe Moss has actually been decided to fast tow back to the pits, so another driver in trouble. Also, we've had issues for Carl Pilkington, and also we've lost in this race Jamie Peters-Ennis, Paul Dunningham, and Dan Crisp. So a few more shenanigans was going on further back in the first couple of laps, and we're down to 18 left in the race. It's a shame, but even so, it's the treacherous and tricky nature of Cadwell Park, and of course it's race 3, so it's a little bit trickier, and that's probably going to be an easy move there for Josh Jackson, letting both Thomas Merritt and Mark Blunt through. Lost the back end going into the bottom of the braking zone at Mansfield. That's a move up into 12th place for Merritt. This is a replay of what happened. On board with Jackson. He comes off the gooseneck. Brakes. And I think he might have just ever so slightly touched the grass, I think, on the exit. Whatever happened, just unsettled the rear under brakes. And sliding wide, an easy move for the two cars that were following behind him. So Jackson continues unharmed, but a pride might be dented, but apart from that, he continues on in 14th place. Lead gap has come down. That was 2.4 seconds. It's now 1.8. So Will Blackwell Chambers is keen to get himself another victory. See here, keep on watching James Dennison, who doesn't have the pace to really get that much closer. And this is Dennison's view here, a little further back. This is a replay here, I think, of the earlier incident. So this is what happened before. Oh, so Griffiths got involved. There was a separate incident involving Williams and Griffiths. This was a couple of laps ago. As we were looking at some of the replays of what happened to Harry Barker and Jack Noller, that was a separate incident that happened at the bottom of the mountain. This is Griffiths we're going to be watching here. This is a replay. So into the gooseneck they go. And Griffiths goes too hot into the first part of the mountain section, into the back of Williams. It sends cars just about scattering. Both of them, I think, recovered, and they're just absolutely blocking the road, and there's 3 cars that have to go every which way, and that involved 2 more in the mix. So that as the 2 cars tried to rejoin, other cars got involved in it, and that was a little bit messy. But in the end, and that's a part of the circuit where you do not want an incident, particularly when it's so nearly gridlocked down there. But nonetheless, there's a couple of casualties, but apart from that, that's the reason why we've lost Nathan Williams, but still we have Tom Griffiths circulating, but down in 16th position. So lots of work to do for him, and he might not get that about 15th place unless there are a couple more drivers that hit dramas. So as we watch Pethick versus Douglas for 6th position, the lead gap continues to come down quite sharply. It's now reduced itself to just under 7/10 of a second and closing even more under braking. So Tom Monhemius under pressure already now, pole position from Will Blackwell Chambers. And Monhemius, remember, as he came into this race, his best result of the season, looking at his points, he's in the top 10. Best result was last time by at 5th place. So if Tom can hold on to this, a first win certainly wouldn't go amiss for him. But he has got just over half the race to try and hold off a 3-time Mazda MX-5 champion, and a man who already has a victory to his name in race number 3 at Navarra. Out over the mountain, through the Hall bends. Blackwell Chambers will be certainly quite welcome to get some points over the 2 drivers ahead of him in the championship, in the points table. as behind also it's looking quite tight. We'll keep the focus on the leaders here for the moment, but just keeping an eye on the cars behind. Williams and Kendall are close for 3rd and 4th. Dennison's not far away back in 5th place, and then you've still got Douglas versus Pethick for 6th and 7th. I think there's been a switch around because Douglas has got past Pethick now. I think they were the other way around a moment ago. So that's another place gained for Benji Douglas. There is Benji in the BRD Motorsport machine with Sim1 sponsorship. Getting driver coached by Lee Britton, who's been a regular in the MXI Super Cup. Now then, I think we're about to get a change for the lead imminently because Tom von Hemius is doing some quite fine defensive driving. Brakes early for Park Corner. We've seen Blackwood Chambers do this before to set him up for a move. Looks to the inside line, gets momentum into Chris Corner. Von Hemius does give him the room, to be fair, but Will Blackwood Chambers knows how to force the issue. Has the inside line through Chris Curve. Von Hemius capitulates and in through the gooseneck into the lead goes Blackwood Chambers, but he went a little too hot. It's the second part. Von Hemius tries to retaliate back down the outside. He looks for the undercut. He runs wide at Mansfield. And into the lead goes the Clapham North machine. Number 43 hits the front in race 3 at Cadwell Park. And again, some brilliant racecraft from Will Blackwood Chambers to outfox the opposition as he hops over the mountain and up towards the Hall Bends. He very quickly leaves the rest of the pack behind him. This is Thomas Merritt going down the inside of Nick Ramsey-Goff, elbowing him aside. This might also give Harry Barker a chance to squeeze through too. Not quite sure Nick will appreciate being shuffled out of the top 10. Still in 12th though, and Nick thought about retaliating, but discretion is the better part of valour sometimes. That's a key case in point. Now he's just ahead of his old sparring partner from race 2, Mark Blunt. They'll be battling again over position just outside the top 10. As that carries on, so does this. Now, there has been a shuffle, I think, for... No, yes, I think Ben Williams is up to 3rd now. No, he always was in 3rd, so he always was in 3rd position ahead of Matt Kendall. Dennison hasn't got much closer, he's still a second behind. Kendall now has another shot at taking P4 if he can try and squeeze past. He's in 4th position, he wants 3rd place from Williams. And Dennison, he can take advantage of the fact that his key rival in the points is just ahead of him and gets held up as Williams has a little lurid slide there through Chris Corner. Just puts Kendall back onto his tail, and Von Hemius now is also trying to stack them up towards Mansfield. He's dropped already to 1.6 seconds behind Blackwood Chambers. Williams took some good momentum through Mansfield. He's now all over the rear bumper of Von Hemius on the run towards the mountain section. Under the bridge, braking a little sooner, trying to set the run up through the mountain S's over the top of the crest. Wiggles there from Von Hemius and Williams. And now through the Hall Bends again. And Kendall knows he can just stay ahead of Dennison. He'll at least take a couple of points out of him as they head to Silverstone for the finale in a couple of weeks. Just watching here the 2 cars in front. I think he's just letting them drive their own race. Not get involved too much. Just apply as much pressure as he needs to. Just let it develop naturally. And then the race and the positions might well come to him in these last couple of laps. Penultimate lap of the race. As we make our way through Coppice, the double right-handers of Charlie's, onto the park straight now. Blackwood Chambers enjoys a 2.3, 2.4 second advantage out in front. We've got Aaron Beattie not too far up the road to put a lap on. And Von Hemius doing a fine defensive job in second place. He's holding up Williams, that's putting him into the path of Kendall. And the cars behind aren't too far stacking up with each other too, because James Dennison is latching onto the tail, and if they're not careful, so too will the duo behind them, which is Douglas and Pethick, holding on to 6th and 7th. This is the key development in the race that we were talking about, the fact that it's such a narrow circuit, passing really is at a premium. It's not impossible, as a certain Will Blackwood Chambers has proved. You can pass at some very unorthodox places on the circuit if you've got the guts, and that was Ben Williams off into the barriers. Ben Williams in car 75 off the road, front end is torn off. That was exiting the mountain. And the key question is, did he jump or was he pushed? Did he do that by himself or was he helped around? Let's see, we're going to get the replay here to see what happened. So, approaching the S-bend at the mountain. He's in between Von Hemius and Kendall. Into the second part. Off the mountain, gets the air off the crest. Did it all by himself, so he just lost the traction as the car landed back on its tyres off the mountain. And once that was done, there was nothing he could really do. And the car behind him, in fact, also shared the same fate. It's now running without a front bumper. That's Pete Smith in 8th position in the second of the 2 Bromley racing cars in the field. He continues on. He looks like he will finish up in 7th place in the end. As for this man, Will Blackwell Chambers, well, he has been one of the drivers that has been pretty impressive in terms of his racecraft tonight. A very impressive move to take the last gas past on the last lap in race 1. Had a little bit of a tangle in race 2. But apart from that, he has been pretty gutsy in his moves, and for the vast majority, he's taken risks that have certainly paid off. Makes his way towards the mountain. He might not be over for second because Tom Wanhemius will have to try and defend all the way to the checkered flag. Kendall wants to make it a Clapham North 1-2 to come up over the mountain for the final time. And there's a chance here that if he can find a move here in the last couple of corners off the Hall bends, second place could go to Matt. Blackwell Chambers, meanwhile, is going to be joined by Ari Barker over the line and across the final corner up to the checkered flag. And after a very fine run from the reverse grid race, Will Blackwell Chambers does indeed take victory in race number 3. It's Blackwell Chambers with win number 2 of the season in race 3 at Cadwell Park. Wanhemius does hold on to take second and his first podium and his best result by far in BRSCC eSports. A very fine drive from the front row of the grid. Matt Kendall picks up 3rd, crucially ahead of James Dennison in 4th. Benji Douglas picks up the top 5. Then it's John Pethick in 6th. Ben Williams in 7th place after his late spin. 8th goes to Pete Smith, 9th to Chris Etheridge, and 10th goes to Thomas Merritt, ahead of Ari Barker and Nick Ramsey-Goff. Mark Blunt couldn't get past Nick in the end. He stays in 13th spot. Tom Griffiths, with the damage to the front of his car, you see there just to the left, has crawled across the line in 14th. And the last few cars that survived race number 3 also making it to the flag. Dan Gamble is one of them, as will also be Carl Pilkington and Aaron Beattie to finish things off. There's Carl. No teammate in James Roberts this evening because he is on work duties over in Qatar for the opening round of the World Endurance Championship. So no time for sim racing for him, understandably. But Carl Pilkington out of the final corner and will come across the line in 17th to complete his evening of racing at Cadwell Park tonight. And the last car that will take the flag, ignore the name, it's not Siobhan Beattie, it's Aaron Beattie, as in it's the junior racer Aaron Beattie. He comes to the flag, lights flashing in 18th spot. He's the last car to make it to the flag. So, plenty of entertainment, lots of relatively clean racing tonight at Cadwell Park. Had its moments, but still, one I think we can certainly be proud of, and many drivers, I think, will breathe a sigh of relief to see the end, to see the back of Cadwell Park tonight. And just to confirm the results, Will Blackwell Chambers with the victory, Tom Wanhemius in 2nd place, Matt Kendall in 3rd, James Dennison 4th, and Benji Douglas round out the top 5. But it's John Pethick, Ben Williams, Pete Smith, Chris Etheridge and Thomas Merritt in the top 10, followed by Ari Barker in 11th place, Nick Ramsey-Goff in 12th, Mark Blunt in 13th place, Tom Griffith and Joshua Jackson. Dan Gamble, Carl Pilkington, Aaron Beattie was the last man to come across the line in 18th place. And the cars that we lost from that race, Jamie Peters-Ennis, Joe Moss, Nathan Williams, Jack Noller, Paul Dunningham and Dan Crisp, who sadly didn't make the flag in the end. Now, I think we can have some brief time just for a couple of interviews, I think. I'm not sure if we've got both James Dennison and Matt Kendall waiting in the room. So we'll do a couple of quick ones before we round off. Will Blackwell Chambers might also turn up as well, given that he usually turns up on the broadcast. If he does, we'll see if we can squeeze him in too. Let's start with the man who took 2 victories tonight and extends his points. Let's go with James Dennison, who I have to admit I wasn't expecting here tonight, but he has managed to make it. James, well, first of all, thank you for making it, because based on what you said before at Brands Hatch, we expect you not to be here, so it's a pleasant surprise to see you on the entry list when you turned up for qualifying. And a worthwhile effort with a couple of very fine victories and a solid result in race 3.
Yes, thanks very much. I've got to say happy birthday to my mum, because the reason I wasn't going to be here tonight was because it was her birthday, but yeah, she insisted that I come along and race. So yeah, even at 31 years old, mum's still making me, putting me first over her. So yeah, happy birthday, mum. But yeah, enjoyed the races, to be fair. Cadwell Park is a difficult track to share with other cars when you're trying to overtake them. As you probably saw in race 3, I wasn't interested in any kind of overtake, so I was just going to sit back and see if anything happened, and it did. But actually, as a track to race, it's or the track to hot lap is amazing. It's like a roller coaster, and it's the same in real life. And I've got to say, I think the iRacing model is very, very good. They've done a really good job of it.
Yeah, I was quite complimentary in the break as well, looking at some of the shots that we had whilst warm-up was going on. You're absolutely right. The laser scan they've done of Cadwell Park is pretty impressive. You mentioned about how tough the circuit is as well. I know there was a few drivers that were a little bit apprehensive, particularly with how big the grid size could have been tonight, with registrations up into the very low 40s. To have, I'd say, only 24 cars here, did you find that it was less daunting, depending on the number of cars that we had, or was it still just as much of a challenge that you anticipated it was going to be, regardless of grid numbers tonight?
Yeah, I think that definitely helps, to be honest. I don't think you'd find cars this wide racing around Cadwell in real life, which is one of the beauties of sim racing, is that you can do that. But yeah, having a smaller grid, because one of my main concerns, because I was doing a few practice laps and I thought, okay, I think the pace is good. But it was getting a lap in qualifying, because I knew that if I was starting second or third, I was very doubtful that I'd be able to make a move, because you need someone to make a mistake basically ahead of you. So yeah, qualifying was actually all right. I banged in about 4 or 5 clean laps, which I think was more than I got at Donington. So yeah, it actually worked out pretty well.
We're going to keep this pretty rapid fire because we've got 4 or 5 drivers waiting, and of course we've got limited on time as well. Just very quickly though, 2 wins in the 4th place. It maintains your points lead as well on top of that, going to Silverstone. It's going to be a showdown, but it puts you in the pound seat going into the up to Silverstone GP in a couple of weeks. Are you confident that you can get this job done and get the title won?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Silverstone is, the polar opposite to this track, super wide, and it's going to be a wet race in race 3. So, yeah, just do my best. Try and stay on the black stuff, and have a good evening. But yeah, that's all I can hope for.
Well, great to see you here, and thank you, of course, to Mother Dennison as well for allowing you to race tonight as well on top of that, which is a bonus. And we'll see you for the finale, where hopefully you can defend the points lead and seal the deal on the Grand Prix circuit. But until then, get practicing, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Cool. Much appreciated, Scott. Thanks.
Great stuff. Well done to James Dennison. We're going to keep it pretty rapid firing. That's bringing each driver for a couple of questions and keep it relatively short. So we'll try and go through one by one if we can. Let's go to the man who's second in the points, who managed to pick up a couple of good results tonight, a couple of podiums, and keeps the fight going all the way to Silverstone, which is Matt Kendall. Didn't take a victory tonight, but still very solid results from tonight's activities. Matt, good to see you once again. We'll keep it rapid fire with a couple of questions whilst we've got other drivers waiting. No victories tonight, but the silver lining is some very solid results, good points. It keeps you in the hunt for Silverstone. Just sum up your night for us in terms of what I'm sure for you was a bit of damage limitation, coupled with some very strong results still to keep you in the fight.
Well, it was basically as I predicted. If James did turn up, with these cars, if you do anything at this track besides drive your normal line on the first lap, the tyres die instantly. So I was just like, okay, well, this is where I'm going to be. However, I did do a naughty, which my colleagues are probably going to have to intervene on,
Yes.
which is not ideal for the championship. I thought it was a Mazda, and I thought, yes, I can keep my foot in here. This is a Mazda. It's like, no. So yeah, that's basically the night.
You remember it was a BMW at the last minute and think, oh, cripes, or something we can't repeat on the broadcast, which is interesting. But nonetheless, again, it's still solid points. Obviously, the stewards will do what they're going to do, if anything, for the contact between you and Williams. Again, to keep it brief, going towards Silverstone now, it's still on in terms of battle between you and James. Obviously, you're going to need all the results to go your way, but even so, it's good to have the fight going all the way to the final rounds, that you and James can pretty much slug it out and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, it's going to be great fun. I do have a lot of fun when I race James. Generally, either I'm stuck behind him or he's stuck behind me, but it's always respectful, so I'm looking forward to that.
Great stuff. Well, fingers crossed for Silverstone. Best of luck in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how you get on as we take the fight towards the final round. But well done tonight, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, thanks.
Great stuff. We'll keep it coming pretty rapid fire. Let's bring in the man who picked up his best result so far in esports. Let's bring Tom Monhemius in, who picked up his best result so far, a couple of podiums. Tom, we'll keep it brief. We're going to be pretty rapid fire with a couple of questions, but congratulations, some really good results tonight, including a couple of really strong results and a first podium for you in second place after a great front row start. How does that feel? And of course, you were leading at one point in the early stages, so the car looked in pretty good form on this reverse grid race.
Yeah, it went pretty well. I mean, I tried to hold on to Will, but he was too quick for me, and then just carrying on, making no mistakes, and finish P2.
This seemed like a particularly strong circuit for you compared to the other ones. Of course, you had some up and down fortunes throughout the season, but you had a good, strong result to end Brands Hatch. What was it in particular about this circuit that seemed to really click with you and the car, particularly tonight?
I think because the track is more narrow, it's kind of more similar to karting tracks, which I've done for a while, so it's quite similar in a way.
And going to Silverstone, of course, you want to end it on a high. Everyone, of course, wants to win and get the podium, but what result from Silverstone to finish off the season would you be happy with? More podiums, or at least the top 5? Or are you aiming to try and get that first win that you were very close to getting tonight as well?
I think at the moment I've not got the pace for a win, so I mean I can put in the practice and hope for it, but I think I'd be happy with the top 5 coming out of Silverstone.
Well, fingers crossed it happens, but great driving tonight. A first podium since you started racing in BRSCC eSports, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks to see if you can build on that. Well done.
Cheers, Scott.
Great stuff. We've got 2 more interviews to do, and we'll rattle them off very quickly. We'll save that, I think, one of the best until last. We'll bring in Nick Ramsey-Goff, who had a very mixed event in the midfield. Mr. Ramsey-Goff, you had a quite eventful night tonight in the midfield. Couple of tiny taps and skirmishes, but just give us a summary of how your race was hovering around the top 10.
Yeah, do you know what? It was probably my favourite race night so far, should we say? And I've done exactly what I wanted to do, which was stay out of trouble, really. So, yeah, no, it was really, really good. I'm pleased. My best results that I've had for this season. So, yeah, happy days.
You had a bit of a lurid slide in the second race where you just about caught it, but unfortunately at the expense of letting Mark Blunt through. So was that just you pushing him a limit a little bit, or was it just simply just a lack of grip out on that part of the circuit, or was that more down to self-confessed driver error?
I think it was getting a bit slipperier. And yeah, do you know what? I've done probably 200 laps in the last 2 weeks. I knew I wasn't going to be fast, but I was just trying to practice staying on the track and trying to gather up these things. And, you know, that seemed to work because 150 laps ago, that would have been a full-on spin and I'd have lost a lot more than one place. So I'm actually really happy with that.
Great stuff. And of course, the final round coming up at Silverstone GP. We'll take this moment in the last question to promo something that's also happening on the full GP circuit as well, of course, because you guys at Driven Minds have got a very special event coming up at the end of March coming up. We're limited on time, so give us a very brief summary of what's coming up with the wonderfully titled Willpower 6 Hour in support of Driven Minds. Give us a quick summary of what to expect for that and how people can get involved.
Yeah, so it's a 6-hour race around Silverstone. There's 3 classes, I think M2s, Radicals, and MX5s. It should be a really good team event, and we're obviously raising funds for mental health first aid training for marshals and volunteers. So it's for a really great cause. I must say a massive thank you to Clapham North, who have really got behind it and sponsored the race. So it's open to anybody. Doesn't matter what your skill level is. Just come and join us. Have a fun couple of hours or 6 hours. And yeah, hopefully we can get some special guests on as well.
So if you're a sim racer, fancy sim racing for a good cause, get yourself involved. The Willpower 6 Hour on March the 31st. Definitely want to check out on that one. Nick, great effort tonight. We'll see you for the finale at Silverstone in a couple of weeks. So get practicing, and we'll see you on the grid on the GP circuit on March 6th.
Cheers, Scott.
Great stuff. And that's bringing the final man who's been waiting. We'll have a chat with him, of course. I think it's safe to say that he was the one providing plenty of the entertainment tonight, which was Will Blackwood Chambers. Victory in race number 3, which means his second of the season. Will Blackwood Chambers, or should I call you Mr. Entertainment tonight? Because you were certainly one putting on quite a few passes, particularly a couple of the very gutsy moves that you pulled off that certainly were very impressive on a circuit like this. It's almost as if you quite like this circuit.
Oh, it's not bad, is it? iRacing's done an amazing job pulling this place together. I've done a lot of laps around here, done fairly well around here over the years, and I love it. If the replay's still open, I would love you to go and have a look at the building just at the beginning of the pit lane. There is the cat in the window, as there is in the real life circuit, which I think is a fantastic Easter egg that they've copied across. But yeah, good racing. I did run out of talent in race 2 and do a bit of murdering, which is not my normal MO, but I've apologised. But it was not my finest moment to poor Mr. Thomas Merritt. So I do apologise for that. But no, overall, really happy with the evening. This was always going to be an interesting circuit for this series, and I think we've come away from it looking pretty good. At least that's how it seems from people chatting. So yeah, really happy, to be honest.
I was going to mention, you pulled off probably, I think, one of the moves of the night, if not one of the moves of the season, with that sort of daredevil outside pass all the way through the mountains to take the lead. That was to take the position. That was pretty extreme around the outside to take that one. Is that a move that you've practiced in real life off of memory, or is that just something that you've had in your mind in the sim for quite a while? Or is it just a case of send a Hail Mary and see what happens?
That was Jack Noller race 1, wasn't it? Is it bad to say I know Jack fairly well, so I knew he'd give me space? So I may have used that a little bit to my advantage. It's certainly not something I'd ever try in real life, but I thought, well, what's the worst going to happen? I'm going to end up on the grass. I've got some drop scores to get away with here. Might as well give it a go, and no, it worked quite nicely.
Just a final point as well, I mentioned it early in the broadcast as well. It's easy to look at grid numbers and think, oh, we've gone down to 24. I think you'll probably agree 24 cars is almost the perfect number for tonight, given that, yes, we had 1 or 2 absences, but even so, 24 cars. I think it quelled some of the fears that some drivers had that with some 30-plus BMWs around here, it was going to be a bit too busy, a bit too tight, but I think the number was just about right, and it gave the right amount of race car, the right amount of space. There wasn't too much traffic, and it meant people could actually race, spread out a little bit more, and actually put on a good show. And I think that's certainly, I think the number that we have, regardless of how many registrations we had, I think the number tonight actually worked really well and suited the nature of the circuit and what was at stake.
Yeah, this is obviously a new circuit, and it's a paid circuit, so less drivers are likely to have this track. Also, in the Discord, I'll be open to admit there was a certain amount of trepidation amongst the drivers at this technical location. So I'm not hugely surprised to see the grid shrink. We're also coming into nearer the main season, and funny enough, real life racing tends to get in the way. I know we've lost a couple drivers this evening to Friday test days, for example. So, to be honest, really happy with the grids. I have a sneaky suspicion they'll probably go back up the Silverstone as it's a more common circuit. But no, to still have 20-plus grids at this point in the season, I think that's pretty good for a series like this.
Yeah, and given the fact that some people might want to use the final round as the warm-up for the actual real-world season opener on the Silverstone GP, I think you might be right. The grids might be going back up for that reason. Good effort tonight. You've certainly put on some fantastic, entertaining moves, and well-deserved for the Race 3 victory. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the finale at Silverstone, where I'm certain that everyone will put on another good show, you and everyone else, and fingers crossed you might be able to be on the top step by the end of the night once again. But once more, excellent effort. Well done on race number 3, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Cheers for that, and thanks Clapham North again for sponsoring this series. It's great to have you on board.
Yeah, echo that once again. Thank you, Will. And that rounds off the broadcast for round 4, or at least event 4, rounds 10, 11, and 12 of the BRSCC Clapham North Winter Esports Series. 4 events down, 1 left to go. It's gone quite quickly, but it has been some great entertainment so far from the beginning to this point. 1 more venue remains, and it is quite a relevant one in BRSCC circles. The full Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It is the venue for the first BRSCC event of 2025, which is in the real world is on March 15th and 16th. For us, though, it happens in a couple of weeks on Thursday, March the 6th, and we're certainly going to be hoping to see bumper filled on the full GP circuit to finish off the season. Once again, a thanks to Clapham North and George Drives and everyone involved in that team. Thanks to everyone to iRacing, of course, for the service. Thanks to our guys at Apex Racing, Josh Wilkie for the broad production, and everyone at Apex for their support for the series. Thanks to all our drivers and teams that have been competing tonight, and thanks to you, of course, for watching as well, whether it's on the BRSCC or Apex Racing TV channels. Be sure to subscribe to both. But for myself, Scott Woodward, and Joshua Wilkie on production and cameras, and all of us here at Cadwell Park, the season finale approaches for the 2025 Clapham North BRSCC Winter Esports Series. 2 more wins for James Dennison now puts him, pardon the pun, in pole position to possibly take the Season 3 title. Can he do it, or can Matt Kendall and co spoil his party? Only one way to find out. Join us in 2 weeks, but until then, bye for now. We'll see you for more from the Clapham North Winter Esports Series.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Yeah.